You're listening to 515, the Ultraman podcast, the show that invites you into the lives of people who make up the Ultra family. Here's your host for these conversations, Larry Ryan.
Thanks, MJ. In today's show, I speak with three-time Ultraman Hawaii finisher and first-time Ultraman Florida competitor, Jeremy Howard. I also speak with the race director of the long-awaited Ultraman Arizona, Jen McVeay. And Steve King has a story for a friend to both of them. My Ohana guest today is an artist, a photographer, a teacher, and a veteran crew chief for races like Ram and Ultraman. She is also a race director for numerous races. So with jobs like that, she clearly does what she does for love and not the money. Further proof to that premise, during the pandemic, she has decided she is going to start a travel blog and a travel agency. She is the co-race director of Ultraman Florida and the race director for Ultraman Arizona. And I'm quite sure she is the only Ohana member to ever appear on the Wheel of Fortune. Jen McVeay, Happy New Year, and welcome to the 515 podcast.
Thanks, Larry. Happy New Year to you, and thanks for having me.
So let's start with that fun part of the introduction. Can you tell us about being on Wheel of Fortune? How'd that happen?
Yeah, that was a few years ago. Back in 1988.
That's a few.
A friend of a friend had the phone number to call to set up tryouts. So I called it. I set up a tryout. Went up to LA. Took a test. There were 60 people in the room. 5 of us passed the test. So it was a pretty tough test. And did a few other tests throughout the day, and that was in January. 5 months later, I got a call and said, "Can you be up here on Friday to film?" So that was pretty exciting.
What kind of tests did they have? Were they like crossword puzzles tests, or what were they?
It was kind of like the puzzles. The first one was a written test, and there were 15 puzzles with just a few letters in each one, and they would give you the category of person, place, or thing. Mm-hmm. Back then, they only used 3 categories, person, place, or thing. And you had 5 minutes to try to fill them out, and you had to get at least 8 right to move on. They were very difficult, and I got exactly 8 right. So I barely passed the test, but I passed.
And so did you guess any of the puzzles when you were a contestant?
I actually did pretty well. At that time, you were allowed to stay on for like 5 days in a row or something like that. And I was on for 3 days.
Wow.
So I was the big winner on the first 2 days. And then on the 3rd day, I got my butt kicked by this girl from Alabama. But I was very happy with my winnings. And I won a Chevy Blazer.
Ooh. And
yeah.
Did you keep it? Did you drive it, or did you sell it?
I kept it. I had it for about 5 years. It was actually a lemon, unfortunately. But I had it for 5 years, and then I eventually sold it.
Oh yeah. Well,
that particular year of Chevy Blazers was not a good year for them.
Well, that's a very interesting story. I don't know many people that have been on game shows. Can you tell me what your life was like before entering the Ultra world? I mean, now we know you as one of the key players around Ultraman with the Ultraman Hawaii and Ultraman Florida, and now your own Ultraman Arizona, which we'll be talking about shortly. But what were you doing before you got involved in this Ultra world? I understand you were still a race director of some other races.
Yeah, I fell into being a race director with a 5K. This was totally by accident about 15 years ago. I offered to help a friend who needed to step down as the RD. That then led to me starting a half marathon, which happened by accident when another half marathon got canceled. Then I started an 8K and then another 5K. And eventually I put on an overnight ultra called the Cow Race. So I've been involved in the race world for many, many years before joining the crazy ultra world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you've also been a crew chief, as I said in the opening, for some pretty big race across America, Badwater. I know that you've worked with Andre on the Ram. Can you tell me a little bit about what that experience was like working with Andre on Ram?
Andre is quite a character. Andre Kajlich, he ended up becoming the very first double amputee hand cyclist to cross the Ram finish line. And it was quite the experience being on his crew. Definitely different from the first time I had crewed Ram. The first time I crewed Ram, I was a crew chief and I was crewing a team, a 4-man team.
Mm.
So switching over and being on the crew and crewing just a single solo rider was very different from crewing a team. I was on the RV crew with my co-pilot, Chris Holzner, also known as JB. And we were in charge of all the food for the crew and for Andre, as well as booking all the hotels, basically all the logistics stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Doing all the laundry, that was something else. But it has to be done, so somebody's got to do it. So I didn't get to see Andre much because we were kept apart from him. But I'm super stoked that I got to see him do it because he's pretty incredible guy.
Yeah.
The first time I met Andre was actually at Ultraman Worlds a few years before that. And I'll never forget watching him wheel his regular wheelchair down the Queen K on the day 3 run and thinking he's totally going to eat it because, parts of the Queen K, you're really at kind of, it has a camber that's really slanted. Yeah. So I thought for sure Andre was going to eat it, but he didn't. He made it. So, and he's a good friend. We have a lot of laughs. We keep in touch to this day. So.
Yeah. And I guess you take some of that same crewing experience over to your Badwater, because the Badwater's not quite as long. You're not going across the whole country, but a lot of the same ideas are part of that. And you've crewed Badwater 3 times as well. So who have you crewed at Badwater?
At Badwater, I've crewed my good friend, the Juan and only Juan Craveri. Juan is really the reason why I ever got involved in Ultraman in the first place.
Oh yeah.
I had met him at another race and ended up crewing him at Ultraman Worlds in 2011.
Oh, I also crewed him in 2011 at Ultraman Canada.
I heard about that. Even Lucy crewed him. That's right. Yeah. And so how easy Juan is to crew. He is the easiest person in the world to crew.
Yeah.
He doesn't really need crew, except he's required to have crew. and I think now he enjoys having crew because we have a lot of fun out there. I've crewed him many times. I can't even count how many times I've crewed him at different Ultraman races and 3 Badwaters.
Yeah. Well, I know Juan was also looking at doing Uberman. Were you going to be part of that crew as well?
We hadn't gotten to that point because the pandemic happened.
Right. Yeah.
So I definitely would love to be part of that crew when that happens, because I know eventually he will do that race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I interviewed him last season, we were talking about that race, and I just assumed that it never went off. But yeah, I'm sure you could use your experience there.
Yeah, it didn't go off. I definitely would love to be a part of that, though. Yeah. But our Badwater adventures were very fun.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't there some kind of contest going on as well?
Oh, the poop contest. The poop contest actually started at Ultraman.
Oh yeah.
But we definitely, feel that we need to do it at every event that we participate in together. The poop contest, usually standard is that it happens on day 3 of Ultraman. And it started with just the crew guessing at what mile would Juan poop, because during a double marathon, almost everybody poops. And whoever came the closest to the mileage or the K that they guessed was going to be receiving a prize from Juan. Eventually, we expanded that and we allowed the general public, Juan's fans, to jump in on social media and guess when he was going to poop. So yeah, the poop contest is pretty famous, I think, at this point.
That's great. Many or most of your friendships now are probably as a result of your many years going around to different Ultraman races. And Jeremy Howard, who I'll be interviewing next in this podcast, will be racing at Florida. I understand that you guys are pretty close as well. And you got to shave his head or something at one point? Or what was this story?
I did get to shave his head. It's funny, I met Jeremy in 2011 too, my very first Ultraman. One year, I don't know what year it was. Jeremy can tell you what year it was. One year, there was a big bet between Inaki and Jeremy. And
Inaki is the Steve King story this episode, so it's all coming together.
Kidding. Yeah. Oh, it's perfect. Great guy. Inaki's awesome. But basically, if Jeremy lost, he was going to shave his head. And Jeremy's hair was long at the time. And his hair, if you've ever seen it, is really curly when it's long. Oh, yeah. And so I actually got to be the one to shave his head. And I got great joy out of that.
Like, did you shave it right down, like bald?
All the way down. Yeah, completely. It was awesome.
Wow.
Now I'm going to have to go pull up the photos.
Yeah. Maybe send them through and we'll post them on the website.
Yeah.
One of those things that you have taken on now is your own Ultraman race and Ultraman Arizona. So how many times have you rescheduled the race at this point? Because I know you even bumped it off of the March date.
Yeah, we bumped it from March 2020 to November 2020, and then bumped it to March of 2021, and then March of 2022.
So this is going to be the 4th one.
Yeah, and hopefully we're having a race. Now, as far as we know, like we're a go. Mm-hmm. Arizona is open as long as permits are issued, which we anticipate all permits being issued. Mm-hmm. We are a go, so we're pretty excited.
Yeah, and I'm also excited to be able to bring some of the athletes to the listeners that are coming up for Ultraman Arizona as well. Can you tell me a little bit of the highlights of your course design? Because there's not a lot of information out there about your course. Can you tell us a little bit about the course?
We're not purposefully keeping it a secret. And athletes have asked us, and we tell them. Mm-hmm. The swim is going to be held in Lake Pleasant, which is at the upper northwest corner of the valley. Beautiful lake, beautiful location. So after the chilly swim, they'll hop on their bikes and they're going to ride south. And the day 1 course is pretty fast on the bike. They're going to be heading down through like Peoria, Surprise. They're going to end up on this really long stretch of highway, the Sunrise Highway, and they are going to fly on that. So it's going to be really fun to see what the day 1 bike times are going to be. Mm. And day 2 is going to be really hard. It's 8,000 something feet of climbing, which is comparable to day 2 at Ultraman Worlds. And one of my favorite sections of the course is actually in the 145 mile range. They go on this out and back section that's hilly, windy roads, but it's beautiful country out there.
This is back roads?
it's kind of back roads away from, they get out of the houses and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then our day 3 run course is challenging as well. We start in Peoria again, and the first marathon of it is actually covers part of the day 2 bike course. And after the first marathon, they'll head a little bit east, and they're going to be going up into some hills in the north kind of Cave Creek area, but the west side of Cave Creek. And there's definitely some challenging terrain up there, but beautiful country again, lots of good views and everything. Hopefully they'll see, some rabbits, coyotes. Doubtful that they'll see any rattlesnakes, but they might be out there.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll finish up, both day 2 and day 3 finish up at Cave Creek Regional Park.
And how many people are you expecting at the starting line?
Right now we have 47.
Ooh.
So hopefully we don't have any more travel restrictions that hit us and prevent anyone from flying.
Mm-hmm.
So I anticipate between 45 and 47, hopefully.
That'll be a nice race. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is your photography. And I know that wildlife photography is one of the things that you are really into with your photography, as well as your, I know you recently got into the astrophotography as well and took a trip up to Alaska and things like that. So can you tell me a little bit about your photography and, what it is about it that you enjoy? And do you have any commercial aspects to your photography, or is it all just for a hobby?
For now, it's all for a hobby. People have been pushing me to post a website, and I'm working on that. Mm-hmm. Even if I sell, a couple of pictures, it's just bonus because I'm not a professional photographer.
Yeah.
But I love taking photos of animals. Animals have always been my thing. And going on safari in Africa was my bucket list forever. And I saved up my miles and I was able to get down there. I figured out how to do it affordably. I learned that you can self-drive in South Africa. You don't have to pay $10,000 or $15,000 to go on a safari. Mm-hmm. It's very affordable when you do it yourself. Rent a car and have the guts to go do it. Some of my South African Ultraman friends taught me that they go to their national parks just like we go to our national parks in North America. Mm-hmm. Ours just don't have wild animals that might want to eat you. So as long as you follow the rules of the park, you're totally safe. So once I figured out how to do it affordably, I've been able to go down there twice a year, with the exception of 2020. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's my happy place. I love it down there. And now I have friends down there. I have game ranger friends and guides, and one set of friends, they actually own a B&B and their own safari company. So I'll go down, stay at their house at the B&B, and we'll go out on game drive twice a day. Nice. For 4 to 5 hours. Yeah. And it's so fun. And it's different every time.
Yeah.
Because some people have asked me, why do you keep going? It's the same animals.
Right.
You never know what the animals are going to do.
Yeah.
And I've seen some crazy stuff. I've seen some adorable little babies. I've seen crazy lion fights. I've actually seen a croc grab an impala and eat it, and just wild stuff. And so the challenge for me now is to be in the right place at the right time. Capture it. Yeah. And you just have to have patience. And then my safari game ranger guys, those friends, they have awesome, massive cameras and lenses because they're out there every day.
Right.
And I've learned a lot from them, on the technique of capturing the animals.
Right. Yeah. And I know during the pandemic, another thing that you did was take your love for safari and put it into your art as well at your house. You did a little
I did.
a little thing at your house. Tell us about that.
I did. Early in the pandemic, people started putting hearts in the windows for the first responders, basically to acknowledge them and tell them that we love them. And I came across this photo. A boy had created paper hearts, and he put a giraffe in the window made out of paper hearts. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And obviously I love giraffes. I'm like, I wonder if they make stickers. I wonder if they make heart stickers. Let me get online. Let's go to Etsy and see what I can find. And I found this company, which happens to be Canadian, Larry, that made these vinyl, all different colored hearts. So I ordered some, and I was just going to do giraffes. And I started doing giraffes because I have a white fence. One of those, it's probably some hard vinyl plastic fence in my front yard. And so I went out and sketched out the outlines of a giraffe, and I started sticking hearts in it. And it turned out really good. And I was like, holy cow, this looks great. Let me do another giraffe, because each panel on my fence is like 5 or 6 feet wide. So I ended up putting a daddy giraffe, a mommy giraffe, and a baby giraffe all on one panel. And so then it was on. I got back online and I ordered all kinds of colors of hearts. I'm like, okay, I need some grays, and I need some blues, and I need some yellows, and I need some oranges. And I created, over the course of the next few weeks, in addition to the giraffes, I have a hippo, a lion, an elephant, a rhino, and a leopard in a tree. And they turned out really good, if I do say so myself. So that's my tribute to our first responders. And little did I know that it was going to, be a 2+ year pandemic. And it is now a permanent fixture on my street. So
yeah, that's great that that's still up there for them and for you to be able to express yourself in that way. And I understand you're also taking some other art lessons, because art's really important to you. What other kind of art are you into besides the photography and making sticker art?
The sticker art was a one and done thing. But although I do have like 4 more panels of fence around the side that I could do. I've been taking watercolor classes, and I take acrylic painting classes. I'm really into the watercolors right now, and learning the different techniques. And that might branch out a little bit into the Ultraman world. We'll see. There might be some type of watercolor awards, perhaps. Okay. We'll see. I have to practice and see if it comes out the way what I'm thinking. If my practice ones come out good, there might be some personalized watercolor awards.
Nice. Yeah. I know with Ultraman Canada this year, I designed a wooden award, and I had friends of mine, Kasia and Greg, who actually made it for me. But yeah, the personalized kind of unique awards are a nice part of Ultraman when they happen.
Yeah, like we did wooden medals for Ultraman Florida, our last Ultraman Florida in 2020, which was the last. That was the last Ultraman Florida, yeah. And I did the wooden award, but then we turned it a little more Hawaiian and brought in the Ohana, aloha, and kokua feel by making handmade leis to be. So instead of a standard ribbon for the medal, they actually had leis.
Nice.
Yeah. Trying to bring in a little bit of the Hawaiian part of the Ultraman.
The island, yeah, that's great. So you like taking these classes, you're taking, you're learning your photography, you're learning your art, but you also teach some classes online as well. What's the name of that company or the platform that you provide your courses through?
It's called outschool.com. And I started teaching on there just to have some extra play money about 4 years ago when they had just started. They were a brand new company when I got on the platform. And so I've been teaching off and on, every week or so, I'll teach classes, not every single day, but it really exploded when the pandemic happened and all kids had to do school online. And so it became my full-time job, and it saved me in 2020 since all my races were canceled. I mean, if it weren't for the online teaching, I would be sleeping on friends' couches. So it's calmed down a lot now. Now I teach, 1 or 2 classes a week, not nearly what I was teaching in 2020. But I'm very grateful to have that. Basically, I have all kinds of irons in all kinds of fires, and I pivot when I need to, just to try to, I don't want to ever go back and have a 9 to 5 at a desk. I want to be able to work wherever I am. I want to be able to travel and work and have that flexibility.
Yeah. And what are the courses that you offer? Are these like regular school district courses, or are they courses that you develop yourself? Are they recognized for any credits? What kind of programs or courses are they offering? Are you offering?
OutSchool itself offers everything. All of the standard, English, math, history, science, the required courses, and kids do get credit for them. If it's a homeschool kid, they get credit for those. I'm not sure exactly how the homeschool requirements run, but I don't teach anything that's required. I want the kids to want to take my classes. And so I teach all electives. I teach, my most popular class is wilderness survival. And that is super popular with certain age groups. And then I teach a ton of animal classes. I teach a lot of national parks classes. And I teach a California class that's pretty popular. And I teach a few painting classes as well.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So you're able to bring it all together.
Exactly.
And as you said, you keep your irons around all over the place to be able to pivot when you want. And one of the things I mentioned right off the top was that you want to take your love of travel and start to turn that into something too. Tell me about what you want to do with that.
I'm starting my own little travel business. I haven't announced this. This is the official announcement, I guess.
Oh yeah, breaking news.
Breaking news. And basically, I'm not looking to be a full-time travel agent at all, but why not try to get really good deals for myself and my friends and family? So the past several months, I've taken several hundred hours of classes and got my official travel certificate, I guess. I don't know what it's called, but I passed the travel proficiency exam, basically. And I'm almost done with my website. And I'm going to be combining that with a travel blog. I already have, I think, 37 articles and with photos. And I've had people, encourage me, you should write a blog about this, so why not?
So when you launch, you'll have a good set of things all ready to go.
Right, exactly.
And then are you looking at doing something weekly or monthly to supplement that, or just whenever?
I think I'll probably try to do weekly. Since I'm ahead of the game already, I can be continuing to write and combine it with my photos. And so as I'm going to different places, I can write as I go.
Oh, yeah. Excellent. Well, I'll be sure to put in my show notes any of your links that we need to put for your photography or maybe this travel business, and people will be able to look you up and find that information.
Oh, thanks. That's awesome. Oh, that's pressure. I better get those together, huh?
Yeah, I guess you better. Well, Jen, I want to thank you very much for coming and being the guest today and introducing yourself to all the listeners. I'm sure many of them already know you around the Ultraman world, but for those that didn't know you, I'm sure they know a whole lot more about you now. What a genius you are with your word puzzles and all the little jobs that you do to keep going. So thank you very much for joining me today, and look forward to seeing you again at a race soon, and good luck with your inaugural Ultraman Arizona when it comes up.
Thanks, Larry. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
And now here's another Steve King story.
Hi everyone, Steve King here. So the person I'm going to refer to now has got a nickname, and that nickname is El Toro, or the Bull. The reason for that is because he has what you would call an atypical physique for an ultra athlete. But this is a gentleman who's done a stunning array of sports, including high alai, Muay Thai. He was a professional kickboxer, very much into motorsports, shooting, and biathlon. In fact, he was a great marksman and a Mexican champion at sharpshooting. He's done a number of Ironman, of course, including Frankfurt, Cozumel, Cancun, but got involved in the ultra distances when he began his Ultraman career in 2002, when he raced in the UK, in Wales, and won the title there. In fact, became the first Mexican to take a title. And in 2013, he came to Ultraman Canada and was our sixth placer there. 2014, he went to Ultraman Florida and came second overall with a great time of 22 hours, 41 minutes, 34 seconds. And that was to Chuck Kenemy, who became later on the race director of that event as well. In 2015, he was very, very sick, went to the Big Island for the World Championships and ended up with a 13th position, but still guttily finished with a 27:24:54 clocking. However, 2016, he came back to the World Championships, set an amazing personal best of 22:34:18, and won the world title. Now, he's trained in 4 different countries, basically. In the US, I saw him quite a few times in Canada, in Vancouver and Victoria. He was a coach there as well, but he's also raced, of course, in his home country of Mexico, as well as in Poland. In fact, his wife is Polish. They met in Barcelona. His wife is Kasia. And what's been neat is the family have come to many of his races and acted as his crew. He's now a triathlon coach. He's a chemical engineer, got his MBA. He's a 4th generation of a family that is in dairy production. And he's also the co-founder of a Mexican organ donation group, and really appreciate what he's given back to many, many people. He's an incredible athlete and a really nice man and a wonderful family. It's always a delight to see him at the races. And we are referring, of course, to Inaki de la Parra.
Today, I will start some new athlete profiles to introduce you to a few of the competitors for the 2 upcoming Ultraman races, Ultraman Florida and Ultraman Arizona. First is Ultraman Florida, which will take place in February on the 11th, 12th, and 13th. This will be my guest's first race in Florida, though he has crewed there before. He's also raced Ultraman Hawaii 3 times, in 2011, 2015, and 2017. He was a state champion swimmer in high school and also swam for the University of Kansas. He holds a master's in education and is a certified teacher, but like the guest in my last episode, turned to full-time coaching instead of following the original career choice. My guest today is joining me from his home in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Welcome to 515, Jeremy Howard.
Thank you, Larry.
Hi. So let's get into some of your background here for the listeners. After a number of years as a competitive swimmer, as I mentioned in the intro, what was it that brought you, or who was it who brought you over to triathlon and got you out of the pool?
So I actually did my first triathlon in high school on a mountain bike. Got heckled the entire way, um, and dabbled in triathlon for about 10 years after that. And then it was my buddy Christian McEvoy, that introduced me to Ultraman. I crewed for him in 2010. Had never heard about it at all, and absolutely fell in love with the atmosphere of Ultraman. And the night that he finished day 3, I 3 beers deep, 4 beers deep, I was signing up for my first Ironman, because that was the only requirement we could find anywhere as to what it took to qualify for an Ultraman.
Yeah.
And the
I think
rest
I've
is-
heard that story before, where somebody was a few too many beer deep and signed up for a race.
Yeah,
that
I
was
came down the next morning and they're like, "You realize what you did last night?"
yeah. That usually is something different outside of the triathlon community. Do you realize what you did last night? Would be a totally different story from, oh yeah, I signed up for a race, of course.
Yeah.
And is it correct that you did your first Ironman and Ultraman in the same year?
Yeah. So I crewed in 2010, then signed up for Ironman St. George in May. Did that, and then did Hawaii in November.
Wow. So you went from, I guess you were doing smaller triathlons at that point still? You said you
Actually,
dabbled?
I think at that point I hadn't raced a triathlon in maybe a year and a half, 2 years. I
And
was
what-
running more at that time.
Okay.
And then I trained with my buddy Christian a bit when he was training for Ultraman.
hmm
I think I probably did my first 112 with him in training.
Yeah. So were you scared to like suddenly sign up for an Ironman and then an Ultraman all in that same year, and really all you're doing is some running?
Honestly, the distance never intimidated me. The conditions in Hawaii, that intimidated me a lot.
Right.
The winds and some of the slick roads in the second half of day 2. For whatever reason, I was never bothered by the thought of running longer, which I think is probably a huge asset. And fortunately for me, I've always had a really strong stomach, so I wasn't necessarily cognizant of the need for a ton of calories, but I just did it anyway. Because I liked eating, and Christian and I were using Ensure and Boost as race nutrition at that time, mostly for the convenience.
Right.
There's 300 calories in like this 6-ounce
Yeah.
thing. You could put in 3 of those, so essentially 1,000 calories into a water bottle, and then fill up 2 of those, and then go out for a long ride, and you'd have 2,000 calories with you.
And that's a smart thing to do, is to train on that same liquid calories that you're going to race on, so that it doesn't just become the race day.
Yeah. And so I think, it wasn't necessarily based on research or significant strategic plan. We just kind of happened to stumble into it, and then realized later on, how many things were going right as a result of that random choice.
Yeah. you are going to be doing the Ultraman in Florida, and as I said in the intro, you've crewed there before, so you have an idea of what the course is going to be like there as well. Do you have any specific goals you're trying to reach in this race? What is it that you're looking to get out of this particular race?
I did. I had some bigger goals that I've been working toward for that race for about a year and a half now, and unfortunately, in the last couple weeks, it's starting to look like I'm not going to be able to get to the start line. I had an MRI last week for a knee issue, and it's nothing super serious, but the timeline between now and race day is super short to rehab that.
To hear.
Essentially, I got up maybe 10 days, 12 days ago, and I couldn't even walk. Couldn't straighten the leg, couldn't bend the leg, couldn't put on a sock. And it turns out there's this little fat pad underneath the patella, and that's getting impinged. And so it's super painful and creates a feeling of instability in the knee. And you just have to wait for, I have to wait for the inflammation to go down, and then start some physical therapy to get the patella to track right again.
Yeah, because I guess right now it's being raised up and sliding back and forth instead of tracking properly.
Yeah, so it's not really an overuse injury. The guess is that at some point, and it might not have been sport related, I hyperextended my knee, and so that created the initial
Trauma.
pop out of the patella tracking correctly, and then after that, it did become a little bit of a chronic thing. So it made it more likely that it would track out and hyperextend. And in hindsight, that's been happening more frequently. Like I felt that sensation of hyperextension, especially in the pool, pushing off the wall.
Oh.
And so it was probably in a acute situation that I don't even remember at some point in the last 6 weeks or so. And then I re-injured it and created this impingement. Who knows how? I get a bigger follow-up with a physical therapist on Tuesday, which will give me more of a timeline as to how inflamed it is and what I can expect over the next 2 months.
Right. Yeah.
But unless they tell me something incredible, I'm gonna assume that it's not enough time to get back up to 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
Training to attempt to race at a high level.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, man. That's the body, man.
yeah. These things happen. And I'm super grateful to be in good fitness again, and just to get to this point, because I'm really not sure if I'd be back in a position a year and a half ago where I'd be super fit again.
Yeah.
So.
Well, maybe let's talk about some of those times when you were super fit. Then let's track back to Hawaii and some of your races there. You did the race in 2011 where you came 5th overall. In 2015, you moved up to 3rd place. That was the year that Mike Coughlin was the winner. He was my guest on my last episode.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then in 2017, you got up to 2nd place. and that was when Rob Gray was the winner. So maybe let's talk about some of these races then. Mike was talking about his race in 2011 when he had his accident and how the Ohana rallied around him to help him get to the finish line that year. And so now you're racing with him again in 2015. Did you get any opportunity to race with him, talk with him during those days?
We got to know each other a little bit on the run. We ran essentially shoulder to shoulder for the first marathon.
Oh yeah.
He was doing a little bit of a run walk. So he would walk for like 15 seconds, drop behind me, and then quickly catch up, and we'd run together, and then he'd stop. And then in the second half, he just ran away from me.
Oh,
yeah. He was super steady that day.
Yeah, and I think Rob Gray did a similar thing. He utilized a run walk strategy as well. I think you were up there and running faster than him, but he knew how much time he had. And I read a race report of his where he was like, watching you and seeing what you were doing to figure out his race. Were you aware that there was that much calculating going on behind you?
I had an idea. I've always been pretty steady in my running, even splitting. I knew I had a lot of deficit to make up that day, but I didn't let that affect the beginning of my day and try and push too hard. Somebody told me that he was like 13 minutes behind at the half marathon, and they told me in a way that was like, "Oh, you've got this. You're gonna do it." And I'm like, "Oh no." he learned his mistake, because the year before I crewed for Inaki, and he had a little bit of a deficit. Rob had a little bit of a deficit to make up on Inaki. He only had 6 minutes, but he tried to go hard.
Right.
And we just kept Inaki in control, and we rolled past him around mile 40, which obviously, when we passed him on the road, that meant Inaki had a 6-minute lead on him.
Right.
And then we put in another 40 minutes into him between mile 40 and the finish line. And so I was hopeful that he wouldn't learn his lesson, and that he'd be like 2 minutes behind me at the half marathon, and that we'd have a replay of that. And so I knew it was going to be a tough day. And the gap was going up on the run, but I knew I could tell that it wasn't going up by enough.
And you had a fantastic run. It was 6:24:17.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I got 35 of the 40 minutes I needed.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's quite the race going on.
Yeah, it was a fun experience. I learned a lot from that race in terms of, I thought I had I've always had a good handle on how to pace a day.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had a good handle on how to pace a stage race, and was pretty conservative in that regard. And that year taught me that I didn't.
Right.
That you need to be a bit more conservative on day one, especially in Hawaii.
Right.
Probably not as much in any of the other courses, primarily because you don't have 8,000 feet of climbing on the bike.
Yeah, you're not getting that in Florida.
And the big one is there's a 2,000 foot climb right out of the water,
right?
In Hawaii in the searing heat.
And a lot of people are going on an unfriendly belly too, from being in the water and up and down on the waves, and yeah. So what were you looking to do in Florida then? Like, taking those past experiences, what was what is the race plan? Because I'm assuming that there's still that chance that you're gonna get healed up and be at that starting line, because I know Ultraman people, and even if you're undertrained, you might show up there just because you paid your money, might as well race. So tell me, what is the plan for Florida?
The plan is to execute a 3-day race. And act on the lessons that I learned in Hawaii. I want to be able to be strong all 3 days. And to be honest, I thought I had the ability to go under 6 hours on the run when I was in Hawaii. But because of and I had a range of where I thought I'd be. And day one, I was at the faster, harder, more powerful end of what I did, and days 2 and 3 were kind of at the poor end of what I thought I could do. And so I just want to be a bit more conservative on day one and be where I thought overall. I could be. Yeah. And the athletes that I've coached since then that have executed in that manner have been able to put up the same power on the bike on day 1 and 2, right. And then run an even split or a negative split double marathon. So I've seen it happen. I just have to do it for myself now.
Yeah. And I think Ultraman has kind of got to the point now where there are enough good, experienced athletes that are in the coaching ranks and bringing along this next generation of Ultraman athletes as well, that these records around Ultraman circles are going to just continue to fall, because it's not like the old days where, people would just go out there on an Ironman training because they don't know what Ultraman is and mess up a stage race. Like, today's racers come in with a lot of knowledge based on the people that have come before them and the mistakes they made.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I look, there's some low hanging fruit for some really great performances in Ultraman. Because it's not at the stage where 70.3 or Ironman racing is, where you have all of these athletes that are super, super elite and are coming out on a weekly basis and doing these performances and training for this type of event. And part of the reason I'm comfortable, I was looking at a sub 20 finish in Florida. Yeah. And part of the reason I was looking at that is I figure if a guy like Lionel Sanders or Frodeno targeted this event and did it, they could go 17 and a half to 18 hours. And so it's, in terms of what's been done in Ultraman, 20 hours is super fast, but if you look at it in terms of an Ironman, which is pretty close to an Ultraman effort, 20 hours isn't necessarily as fast as it seems.
Right. Yeah.
And that belief that it's not as fast as it seems helps to work toward.
You need that one person to break the barrier, to open the floodgates.
Yeah, and if I'm that person, great. If not, I know, Richard Thompson is shooting for the same thing at Ultraman Australia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be fun to watch for. Yeah. What I'd like to do now is I want to flip over to our more personal side and get away from your races per se, and do the 2 minutes in transition to get us there. As listeners will know, that we do our rapid fire questions. So I'll do the rapid fire question, you do the quick answer, and we'll see if this works for 2 minutes.
Okay.
All right. So what has been your favorite event that you've done so far?
Probably Beach to Battleship. outside of Ultraman.
Okay. Yeah. Bucket list event for you that you still got there that you're reaching for?
24 hours running.
And a particular location for that?
No, I just want to be able to actually run a 24 hours.
Say that you did it right.
Yeah.
What is the last piece of gear that you've purchased?
I've purchased a lot of gear in the last month.
Oh yeah.
I guess a new race helmet.
So you didn't need anything for Christmas this year. You were your own Santa.
Yep. Which
book are you most likely to recommend to people?
I've read a lot of good books lately. Brad Stolberg has a new one on groundedness that's really good, and I just read Range by David Epstein.
What do you like to do that is not tri-related?
I love reading of all kinds. I was a creative writing major.
And I know you like to travel, and since none of us have really been traveling too much lately, what's the next place you want to go to?
I would really like to go to Alaska. And then internationally, I'd love to get to New Zealand someday.
So last question for this transition round. Do you have a New Year's resolution this year?
I had a New Year's resolution about 25 years ago to never have another New Year's resolution. So I've been holding strong on that.
Wow. All right. You got that one down. I know Caroliine Bloom is one of your athletes, and she described herself, she was on in episode 3 of this season, she described herself as being married to triathlon. Would you say that you're kind of along that same line? Is that what makes the two of you mesh well together?
I'm not sure I'd say that. We work well. We work well together. I think a little bit because we're opposites. We share a very common passion for triathlon, but outside of that, we're very different approaches to things. So it allows, I learn a lot from coaching her and seeing the perspective she has on the different things that I say or what she experiences, which wouldn't necessarily be my first thought if I experienced the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Will you be going with her to Ultraman Canada?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll be crewing for her in July.
Awesome.
Looking forward to that. I haven't been to British Columbia, so
yeah,
it'll be nice to check out.
It's a beautiful course. Beautiful course. So as a coach and as an athlete then, what advice are you giving your athletes that are taking on these 5:15 events? Like you said, you've learned so much from it, kind of great strategies to work out. Maybe for some other athletes that are maybe trying to do this on their own, what's some good advice that you share with all your athletes?
The biggest thing toward any of those is just consistency. It's not the big workouts or super long days. It's just the day-to-day consistency being much more a determinant of success than having to go long or frequently, especially on the run. I think I constantly have the conversation with my athletes of them being surprised at how little long running they're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting how different coaches take different philosophies toward how they want to get their athletes to train. In a way, this kind of works with today's Steve King's story, which is about Inaki de la Parra. And I know that you have a relationship with him. So much so that you actually have traveled to Poland a few times to work with him and to work on your coaching. Can you tell me a little bit about how it was that you and Inaki came together to work in this way?
We get along really well, and he moved there in 2017.
And you guys met
started a
through
coaching
Ultraman.
group.
We
We
met
did.
at the Worlds, right?
Yeah, we met in 2015. We were both in Hawaii for Ironman World Championships. For that week, neither one of us were racing. And so we did a bunch of training together that week. And then he ended up getting really sick and barely finished in 2015. And so I came back and crewed for him in 2016 when he won.
Let's take a break from the interview for just a second and listen to Steve King calling that finish at the Ultraman World Championship for Inaki.
He is your champion for 2016, and he breast the tape at 7:01:49. 7:01:49. He is your champion. What a way to go, Jeremy. I know you're going to be proud of that. And his team, what a team effort they have done for him today. Absolutely outstanding. Drew the paddler, Jeremy Howard, Kasia, his wife, Philip and Ada. What a team they have made today. All the people in Pete that are part of Inaki's crew over the years as well. We are so grateful. Don't forget Thomas, Katarzyna, Sinetra, Oscar, Tomek, Lena. They've all been part of his crew over the previous 4 outings at the Ultraman. So on his 5th outing, not only has he been crowned a champion in the UK, but now he rises to the peak, to the top of the apex. It doesn't get any better than that, a world championship status. The first Mexican, and of course a man who actually lives now in Poland as well, and he's got a coaching business here. That is absolutely outstanding. We are so proud of him. Please give a big hand once again. The man who speaks 5 languages, amongst other things. His wife does speak communicates very well to the rest of the world. And we'll be letting you know, the world will know already that he is the champion this year. What an outstanding performance.
Thanks, Steve, for that call. We'll get back to the interview.
Through all that, we were bouncing coaching ideas off each other, and I really respect his opinion. He has a wealth of knowledge and is dedicated to always learning more, and so he's a great person to have to be able to talk through things with. And so when he started a coaching group over in Poland, I went over and, we did some training together, and it was good to, meet some different people over there, and some people who were working in exercise physiology over there, and get their perspectives on things and see how they're doing things.
Yeah. And you've also done a coaching clinic in India. Can you tell me about what brought you to that experience?
So I coach an athlete who lives in Delhi, Gaurav Makkar, and he's been involved with Triathlon India in creating a coaching group, an athlete group over there, but it's still very, very underdeveloped. Mm-hmm. There's no infrastructure for triathlon over there, and so through a lot of our conversations, we had talked about what he can be doing to create a better community. And he wanted to bring me over and have me talk to some of his athletes and some of the coaches that he's worked with loosely on different education topics, and so after a couple years of talking about it, the opportunity arose, and I ended up going over there for 3 weeks, and him and I ran a couple of clinics in Delhi and then one in Mumbai, and got in front of about, I'd say about 150, 200 athletes and coaches over there. So it was good. And we did some practical sessions in the water in both places.
Yeah. I mean, India is such a large country that it would be hard to start anything there, I think, right? It's so spread out, and the people that have the means to do it are also spread out. Back in my first season, I was talking to Abhay Kelkar. He's an Indian athlete who's coming to Ultraman Canada, and he's in a really small mountain village, and there's not going to be that kind of infrastructure available to a lot of people there to take up that sport and really get into it.
Yeah, and the knowledge is there. Well, the knowledge of the sport is there now, and the desire is there. Maybe not in a percentage. The same percentage of Indians want to do it as the same percentage of Canadians or Americans, but in terms of raw numbers, there's probably just as many. But yeah, access to pools, access to open water, access to roads. But there are roads that you can ride on there, even outside of Delhi. It just takes a little bit more planning. And there's not much in the way of races, but Ironman just had their first 70.3 there. Triathlon India is starting to put on races, and so it'll do nothing but grow. And there's some decent athletes that are performing in all of these races. The first Indian athlete completed Ultraman within the last 10 years, and now we've seen races where 5 Indian athletes have finished.
Right.
And so,
and they do have their own 5:15 race over there as well now.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. They've
that's right. I did see that.
Slightly misusing an Ultraman name, but they have that race. You've actually been an event director as well for races. Tell me a little bit about your experience in that. I think you did one that was a big fundraiser. So tell me about some of those experiences.
I've kind of been an accidental race director.
Me too.
I learned I learned a little bit about it from helping out at local 5 and 10K races, and then obviously with swimming, you're kind of putting on an event with swim meets that, and we put on bigger, smaller swim meets. So from there, I had again, my buddy Christian ran across the country and raised money for the Yale Cancer Center, and I was out visiting him during his run, and we were talking about ways that would be special to finish it, and he was going to be finishing in Narragansett, Rhode Island, and so I came back from that trip and with the goal of organizing a marathon to coincide with the end of his finish, and it ended up probably being a bigger event than it would have. It was Rhode Island on December 17th.
Ooh.
It ended up being 70 degrees that day.
Oh.
In 2006. We got
lucky.
Super lucky. But it was the only marathon in Rhode Island that year. So we got all the 50 staters that wanted that go for trying to complete a marathon in every state. So we ended up with runners from like 40 states, and just over 500 athletes total, going from idea to race date in 3 months.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that was an experience. It was fun. It was a lot of work because I was a full-time swim coach at the time, and was going back and forth between Rhode Island and Western Connecticut. Then after I switched to more full-time coaching, working part-time with in a cycling event there, I originally just started as a volunteer and then morphed into offering logistical support for the event. And then by 2015, I became the event director. And
What was that event?
It was called the Connecticut Challenge, and it still exists. And they run a survivorship center, cancer survivorship center in Southern Connecticut. And their big fundraiser every year is this big bike ride, 100 miles, 75, 50, 25, and 10-mile routes.
Okay. How many riders would be on any given year?
The year that I was the event director is the peak year. Okay. for riders. They had 1,400 riders that year.
Oh, and what kind of money are they raising then for
that year was $2.5 million. Typical year is roughly 1,000.
Nice. And your salary was 10% or?
Yeah, I wish. No, it was it was a bit more work and grief and aggravation than I wanted to come back for a second year.
Yeah. One of the selling points that I put on the podcast is talking about the reason that people come back to Ultra all the time is the Ohana. It's the people that you meet, the lifelong friends that you have, and you've shared stories about some of those people already with Inaki and Christian. Who are some of the other people that you've met through this then, and some of the reasons why that they are important to you and what's going on and how it shaped your life a little bit? I know, like we're talking about Ultraman Florida, and Jen McVeigh's obviously been a long time part of that race, and also in this episode, I speak with Jen McVeay as introducing her as the Ultraman Arizona race director. So maybe start there, but share some of your other friendships that you've come to have.
Yeah, so Jen's first time crewing at Ultraman was my first time racing, and we didn't meet until probably the end of day 3. She was cheering for me a lot on day 3, partly because she met my entire crew and had beers with them. And my crew that year was Christian and my parents, okay. And they were all out drinking at the end of day 1, and then I ended up running quite closely for the first half of the day with her athlete Juan Craveri. So kept seeing her as I passed their crew vehicle, and then we officially met. The end of the day. Yeah. The crews get pretty tight out there when they start leapfrogging each other. It's that's a good part of the race as well. And then we really we hit it off, talking about race directing and the different events that we'd seen and all. And I'm not the race director she is, but that was one of our initial connections. And then I've been fortunate. I spent some time out in Hawaii and was fortunate to be able to go over to Oahu and check out one of her races and help out. She had a race on New Year's for a number of years. That was essentially a 24-hour run around Kualoa Ranch.
Who are some of your other crew and people you've crewed for, and the friendships that have been developed?
Yeah, one probably the most unexpected friendship I've developed through Ultraman is with Adam Ellenstein. We just both randomly happened to crew for an acquaintance of ours in 2014 in Hawaii. And we met then and absolutely hit it off. I love and so, you know, after spending that weekend with him in 2014, I asked him to be my crew chief in 2015. I love his perspective and his mentality in approaching these longer events, and so I got to 30 miles in and things started going south, and Adam, you just kept forcing me forward and kept forcing food down me. You know, you essentially said, you know, you're just low calorie. You can still run. And so he forced calories down me for about an hour and a half. And I got up to Scenic Point, and my parents had flown out for the end of the race. And so they were sitting at the top of that climb.
Nice.
And at that point, I think I was walking with my buddy Ryan, and I was like, well, I guess I have to run now if they flew all the way out here. And so I started jogging with some walk breaks, and my sister jumped in and started jogging with me, and I gradually started feeling better. And I remember, you know, it wasn't even obvious to me at the time, but we hit the 3/4 mark, and right when you hit the 3/4 mark, there's a bit of a climb, and we hit it, and my sister's like, I'm out. The van was nowhere to be seen. She's just like, I can't run this fast any longer, which made me realize I had been picking up the pace. And the last half marathon that day was pretty special. I think I went from a 2:05 third half marathon to a 1:31 last half marathon. And that wouldn't have happened without, you know, without Adam, you know, staying patient and recognizing and keeping me grounded in the moment.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's and that's what you need with a crew, right? Is someone who knows you well enough and knows the racing well enough to be able to keep you on your track and do that. You mentioned Ryan there as well. Ryan Toner. He must be a pretty good friend, because he's going to spend his honeymoon crewing you in Florida.
Not exactly. So yeah, he's getting married January 9th. And then they're gonna have a honeymoon in the summer. But yes, the first trip he's taking after he gets married is.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to Ryan and his wife. What's her name?
Tammy.
Because you know, it'll only be a few days to the wedding when this episode is released. So congratulations, you guys, and you'll be at the wedding as well. You'll be performing duties.
Yeah, I'm in the wedding.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'm excited to be there for him and Tammy.
Yeah. So you just different ways of crewing for people, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Jeremy, I want to say thank you for coming on and doing this interview. Obviously, it's been recorded a little bit earlier, so I'll have to do an update as to how you are feeling and what the prognosis is for you and the ability to get to the race in February. But Happy New Year to you. And thank you so much for giving me the time today and letting me introduce you to the people and introduce you as a Ultraman Florida athlete. And sure, you'll make it to that starting line in one way or another.
Thank you. I certainly hope so. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks a lot. So since our conversation, I have heard from Jeremy again. And unfortunately, he will not be towing the starting line at Ultraman Florida. He will likely, however, still be attending and helping out with the race because that's just what Ultra people do. Good luck with your recovery, Jeremy.
Hey, if you liked what you heard today, please tell a friend and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate it if you'd rate and review the show while you're there. Drop the names of the people you think we should interview and we'll get in touch with them and make that happen. Thank you for listening to 515, the Ultraman podcast, a production of 55 Enterprises. Now really, go subscribe now before you forget.